All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this regular meeting of the Temple City Council for Thursday, July 18th, 2019. Please rise as Pastor Paul Alexander with the Church of the Living God leads us in the invocation, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by the City of Temple Junior Fire Cadets.
Let us pray. Direct our paths. Now, Lord, we ask that your guidance and direction in these now your officers carry out the interests of this city. We're thankful for the leaders of this fine city. We're asking that you give them the continued wisdom and guidance to carry out the obligations and commitments of this city. We ask your favorite blessings for the leaders, the community, and all its citizens. Thank you for all your blessings that you have bestowed upon each and every one of us. Thank you for your grace and thank you for your mercy. Thank you for all that you've done and all the blessings. In your holy name, amen.
Amen.
Please join us for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. Now we'll move on to the public comment section of tonight's meeting. Citizens who desire to address the council on any matter may do so. As long as you've signed up prior to this meeting, public comments will be received during this portion of the meeting. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and no discussion or final action will be taken by the city council. We do have a few folks that have signed up. First on the list is Wesley Gibson. Yes, sir.
I'm Wesley Gibson. I live at 1615 South 11th Street, Temple, Texas. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the board. I'm a homeowner in District 2. I've been very happy with the improvements around my neighborhood in the past 5 years. My road was recently repaved, and there are now infrastructure improvement projects all around me. I'm here today to inform you of an issue that has come up in my home. Time Warner Cable, now Spectrum, solicitors keep coming to my door even though I have a no soliciting sign. By the third visit, I begrudgingly decided to call the police to make sure that they had the appropriate paperwork. Time Warner Cable did, in fact, have the appropriate paperwork, and I asked the person who came if they could put me on a no-knock list. He said that he would try, but they were persistent as bees to honey. They came again and again. Each time they were insistent that they were not soliciting, but they would always ask for my business because I wasn't a current customer. The act of asking for or trying to obtain something from someone is the definition of solicitation. They can harass me by mail, but they shouldn't be able to ruin my personal time at home. I reviewed the permitting application process and city ordinances and believe they are needed of reform, and it's my understanding that y'all are actively working on that. So I'm here tonight to support y'all in what you're doing and hope that we can work together to find a mutually beneficial solution for me and the other residents of Temple. If you have any questions, I would like to answer those now. If not, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Next on the list is Milton Hensley. Mr. Hensley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I've come again today to discuss the miniature swine proposition that y'all have. Last week I discussed this with y'all, and this is the proposal that I wished you would consider. If you will notify the persons who are adjacent to the owner of the property that has made application for the swine, and let us the adjacent owners to voice our opinion. This is what y'all do when you have a subdivision that's being approved. You invite the owners around to either agree or disagree. I would like for you to be able to do the same thing. I think this would be the fair way, and that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Henson. Dana Farrar?
My name is Dana Farrar. I live at 306 Mitchell here in Temple. I'm here with Milton, and I agree with what his proposal is on getting your neighbors to agree to whether or not you can have the swine on your property. Because in my opinion, this is opening up a door to a larger factor and more animals. So I think that if this proposal is adopted to where your neighbors have to agree to it, that it would be, something conscientious for everybody in the area. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrar. Moving on, we'll now receive a presentation of certificates of appreciation from the Temple Junior Fire Cadets. Chief Randalls.
Thank you. I wish Thomas could have been here for this, but he's both got a personal sickness and a family illness tonight. So you get stuck with me, and I apologize for that. But so, cadets, please stand up. So this is part of our Junior Fire Cadets. Each year since 1998, we have had the Junior Fire Cadet program here in Temple. Originally started by Fire Chief Otto back in '98. And Thomas Petchel, our public safety specialist that has been taking care of that program every year since. And so again, this is our 21st year. In this program, we teach our cadets about what it's like to be a firefighter. They get to climb our ladder truck, spray water, and just get an opportunity to participate in a lot of things that they normally don't get to do. Rappelling off of a building, flying in an airplane, doing rock climbing. We also teach them lessons on first aid, personal hygiene, and then just other safety lessons that they can use throughout their lives. The really great thing about this program is since its inception, we've had several, obviously thousands of children go through it, and we now employ, I think, 3 of them that have gone through this program and are now Temple firefighters. And so that's great to see, and I hope all of the young folks that are here tonight someday choose to be a Temple firefighter. So again, just our presentation up here, just some of the pictures that they had from this year. And if you can imagine, it should be playing the theme from Superman. So we're supposed to have music, but well. And so just as a result of that, and as a result of council funding this and allowing us to participate in this program for the kids, we would like to give you some certificates of appreciation to each of the council members and the council appointees. So we're going to hand those out at this time.
Chief, while these are being handed out, I just want to let everybody know I had the opportunity to go to the graduation a couple of weeks ago over at the CAC, and there were more than 4 cadets. The cadets filled up probably about a third of the CAC. So what? How many?
So we had 131 go through the program this year. That night we had about 110 of them there.
Okay.
And obviously a lot of families actually delay their family vacations so that their children can participate in this. We typically, once we have one of the kids participate, they will be a repeat participant year after year, and then come back even as counselors through their high school years. And so it's a great program. Our membership does a great job with it, and we just really appreciate, like I said, the city funding that and allowing us to do that. And I think it's been a real asset to the city.
Yeah. I had a number of parents come up to me after the ceremony and say that their kids were repeat attendees, and that they how much they enjoyed it, and the kids look forward to it every summer. And so it's really a great program that I think obviously the kids enjoy, and so thank y'all for your. I know it takes a lot of time away from your regular job, right?
Yes, sir.
But thank you for your department for supporting this.
Thank you,
It's
sir.
it's a fun program.
Yes, sir.
You bet. Thank y'all.
Mayor Timothy A. Davies.
You've already handed them out.
Sounds like you're in
Correct?
trouble.
What am I supposed to
You're gonna be a junior fire cadet.
do? Guess so. Yeah,
I like being a fireman.
I guess so.
Man, it's scary.
I don't know about all that rappelling down the side of the. All right. Next item is to recognize Sammy Marshall as a 50-year member of the Daughters of the American Revolution, and I have a proclamation to read. If you ladies with the Daughters of the American Revolution would please come to the podium.
And then the Marshall families are here.
Where?
In the
I don't see
far
them.
back. There.
Oh, yes, yes, please do. Come on up. You guys needed more direction before we started.
I know.
I apologize. That's right. All right, so let me read this proclamation. The proclamation reads, whereas Sammy Nancy Ferrier Marshall was born April 9th, 1926 in Texarkana, Bowie County, Texas, the daughter of Henry Marshall Ferrier and Sammy Grant Byers. Whereas Sammy was a member of the University of Texas Zeta Tau Alpha fraternity, which aimed to intensify friendship, foster spirit of love, and build a purer, nobler womanhood in the world. She was one of the 10 most beautiful girls at the University of Texas in 1945. Whereas she married Robert Kiefer Marshall Jr. on January 30th, 1948 in Travis County, Texas, and began her 69-year love story as Kiefer's wife, loyal and delightful supporter for him as a 10-year member of the Temple City Council and 2-term mayor of Temple, president of the Temple Chamber of Commerce, and founder of Kiefer Marshall Insurance Company. Whereas Sammy devoted herself to her family, community, state, and country as a regent of the Betty Martin Chapter Daughters of the American Revolution from 1979 to 1981, and honorary regent thereafter. Whereas Sammy survived the death of her son, Robert William Kiefer Marshall III, and devoted her life to raising his sons, Robert Marshall V, Lily Marshall, and Western Marshall, as her own. She continues to love and support the memory of her husband and lives with her great-grandchildren. And whereas throughout the Sammy Nancy Ferrier Marshall's 93 years, she has made a significant, lasting, encouraging, and engaging impact on the city of Temple, our state of Texas, and our nation, helping to improve each person's life with her 1,000-watt smile and gentle, kind words. Now therefore I, Timothy A. Davis, Mayor of the City of Temple, Texas, do hereby honor Sammy Nancy Ferrier Marshall, who has served her community in the best traditions of our dear city of Temple and the state of Texas, deserves our thanks and appreciation. In testimony whereof, I witness my hand on the seal of the city of Temple, Texas, this 18th day of July, 2019. So, thank y'all very much for the legacy of the Marshall family here. If you guys will come on down this way and at least introduce yourselves in the group, and anybody that has any kind words, this is an appropriate time to give those.
I'm Pat Marshall. I'm the youngest grandson of Sammy Marshall, and we're here on her behalf because she's unable to be here. So we thank y'all so much for everything that y'all done. That's just great honor.
I'm Rob Marshall. This is my wife, Christina. Just tremendous honor to be here under these circumstances, and very humbled and proud to represent our grandmother, and just very thankful. Thank you all.
You bet.
I'm Becky Vidoc, Regent of the Betty Martin Chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. Sammy was a 50-year member of our organization. We have been in Temple 115 years. So for almost half of that time, Sammy has been a vital, important part of our organization and given so much to the city, and for that we are deeply grateful.
Very good. Thank y'all very much.
Rob, it's good to see you.
Just about anyone that's been in Temple for any length of time has been touched in a positive manner by the Kiefer Marshall family. So thank y'all so much.
Okay. I think she's the sweetest woman I have ever known. She's
Yep.
well deserved.
Yep.
This is well deserved. They should have brought some pickles. Have you ever had her pickles? Her pickles. No. Sammy Marshall's pickles. They're famous.
Never had them. Okay, very good. Moving on to item 4 on the agenda is to receive comments from June Cummings regarding property lines and fence locations in the Stone Ridge Phase 1 subdivision. Ms. Cummings.
Good afternoon. My name is June Cummings, and I reside at 4802 Ridgeway Drive, Temple, Texas, with my husband, Kenneth. Thank you, Mayor Davis and City Council members, for allowing me the opportunity to be included on tonight's agenda. I have provided a packet containing context and supporting photographs for your review. My purpose to be before you now is zero lot line and fence placement. Imagine the retirement home you have worked for your entire life taken away in bits and pieces. When we purchased our home February 28, 2014, it was with a zero lot line description. It was obvious due to the placement of the fences. We were not advised otherwise. We attended the closing at Central Land Title Company. They neglected to explain the survey regarding boundaries or any encumbrances. It is our understanding, according to Bell County closing regulations, that we should have initialed said survey, which would have shown we understood and had the opportunity to question and any portion or portions we did not understand. This was not done. A Temple Code Enforcement officer came to our home on April 25th, 2019. We were informed that a neighbor had complained of damages done to her home from our deck that has been there for over 16 years. We have only resided there 5 years. It was so very unexpected, and we were heartsick to know that we would have to remove our peaceful place. Excuse me. It was a big part of our decision to purchase this home. Sadly, we were cooperative and compliant raising the deck. Subsequently, the neighbor acquired a permit to have a solid 6-foot wood fence installed approximately 5 feet out, running the entire length of the property line. We were away Saturday, July 13th, arriving back home on Monday, July 15th in the morning. We were faced with a gaping opening, leaving our property vulnerable to vandalism and theft. We are not able to let our dogs out into our own backyard. Where does this end? We have maintained, occupied, and treated the property as our own, openly, and not trying to hide anything within the allowable span of 3 to 10 years without any objection from the neighbor. We have owned this property, again, for 5 years. As a result, we believe we meet the criteria for adverse possession. Although we have done nothing wrong or broken any laws, we are paying in a very personal way. To try and convey in 5 minutes 3 months of confusion and unanswered questions is not possible. We have been threatened with a lawsuit and unwarranted hostility. We have daily anxiety not knowing what to expect next. We are not able to move forward. We have endured financial loss, dismantling of our beautiful garden that brought us great joy each morning, as well as the physical toll. And obviously, there's emotional. It has taken on us very deeply. Some days we feel the need to just get away from it all. In conclusion, because the fences were not properly placed in accordance with the 2003 survey 33 years ago, I am requesting 0 property lines remain as is as we purchased. I apologize for this late addition to our presentation. However, we learned yesterday that the gaping hole, approximately 4.5 feet wide, can remain there for up to 6 months. Building permit said that you have to build a fence within 6 months. We are now forced to erect a barrier to protect our home. We are in our 70s, retired on a fixed income. And Dr. Ott is here tonight. And I would like to thank him dearly, because my experience as a teacher here in Temple has been amazing. Thank you, Dr. Ott. We are overwhelmed, wondering how we will accomplish this. Again, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Cummings.
Any questions?
Do we have any input from staff on this issue, or is that something that we can get a better understanding of later?
I'll ask Kayla to kind of, if she has any thing that she can share at this time, but, you know, I think this is probably a private property rights,
Sure.
issue between 2 property owners that the city doesn't have any authority in.
Okay.
Also, if I can, I've provided my presentation notes to all of you so that you can cross-reference each paragraph, which I've numbered in accordance to the packet I previously handed out.
Thank you, Ms. Cummings.
Thank you.
Very good. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing. It's item number 6, presentation of the proposed Community Development Block Grant 2019 and 20 Annual Action Plan and Budget, including the funding recommendations. Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. What we're presenting to you all today is the fiscal year 2020 CDBG Annual Action Plan. We are not asking for any action on this tonight, just to hold a public hearing. As you all are aware of, the city annually receives community development block grant funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD. The primary purpose of that is to provide communities with decent housing, suitable living environments, predominantly for low and moderate income persons. So with that, each 5 years, the city is required to produce a consolidated plan that essentially outlines both the goals and activities that will be undertaken by city staff over a period of 5 years. We are still within that, and our consolidated plan will go until 2020, and we'll have an update for that next fiscal year. So in addition, though, every year we are required to develop an annual action plan in which we outline the programs that will be implemented within that 5 year, that will be implemented that address the consolidated plan. So the timeline thus far is that a public meeting has been held on June 12th. It was very well attended, as you can see from the photos. Right now we are within our public comment period that goes in from July 1st to August 1st, and today we are holding public hearing number 1. We're proposing public hearing number 2 and council consideration on August 1st. Before I go into the annual action plan that we are presenting to you all this evening, I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we were able to accomplish with our CDBG funds this fiscal year 19. Within our funding, we are able to look at several unsafe structures that are in our low and moderate income neighborhoods, and we were able to accomplish demolishing roughly around 16 structures within this fiscal year, utilizing those funds. So we make sure that those dangerous structures are demolished and then those sites are cleaned up. Another great project, which you may have seen when you're driving along Adams Avenue, is a sidewalk project. This is located just east of Loop 363, and it's a really great addition to that as well. 7th Street was our largest project. That included a complete reconstruction of the roadway from Avenue H to the cul-de-sac by St. Mary's. And so as you can see, this project basically reconstructed the entire road. That you can see that there are old bricks in the road. We were able to salvage those, and we have them stored at a location. Several of the sidewalks are in disrepair, and you can see here in the picture on the left, the before picture, that the sidewalks were very far removed from the road. And so in many instances, when they were cracked, they were difficult to walk on, and then in many instances, they were cars would park over them in driveways. And so what we did with this project, as you can see, is we took those sidewalks and we moved them a lot closer to the road. And with this project as well came, what we did was we reconstructed driveways that were within the right-of-way. And so you can see we went to the edge of the city's right-of-way with this project. And so the driveways along this area have been reconstructed as well. Here's another example of that. The picture on the right, is a great picture. I think it gives you a good indication of how great that sidewalk is in relation to the driveway now, and how safe it will be for the pedestrians in this area. I would like to take a moment to thank our contractor, Lone Star Grading, who completed this project. During the time frame that they were reconstructing this street, we had a lot of rain. And there was a lot of coordination with existing neighbors that needed to be done, and they did a great job working with the citizens as well as making sure that this project did stay on schedule. So we want to thank Lone Star Grading for all of their hard work. They did a great job. So now into our fiscal year 20 allocation. So previously, this fiscal year 19, we received a little over $536,000. And fiscal year 20, CDBG funding, we should have a little over $588,000, a net increase of just over 9%, or $51,927. As you can see from this graph, this is the historical allocation, and so the CDBG dollars do change a little bit as they go, but so far we're seeing that we are consistently getting a little over $500,000 each year. So we have some reallocation dollars as well. So there's about $220,000 that were not spent from the previous year, and so those will be reallocated to fiscal year 20. So with that, we anticipate a total of $808,000 to be utilized on projects. As I stated, the CDBG funds are required by HUD to be utilized in low and moderate income areas. This is a map of the city of Temple. The blue outlines the city limits, and the pink area, as you can see, shows where our target areas are, which is over 51% low and moderate income, and that's what the funds will be utilized in. So just to go over some of the different programs that we're proposing in the annual action plan. We had a successful year with infrastructure. We would like to continue to focus on some sidewalk transportation enhancements, but we will be focusing on some other things as well. So we have proposed $130,000 toward those projects. We are also underway with a housing reinvestment program. First, we are working on a housing strategy, and that firm will be done with that at the end of July. With that, there will be recommendations developed for a housing reinvestment program, and we will bring that to the council for consideration to see how we want to move forward with that. So, as you can see, a little over $218,000 is proposed, and so we would really like to revamp this. So right now we have a housing improvement program which focused on minor repairs, but we're anticipating a housing reinvestment program that will look at both minor and major repairs. But we'll be bringing that to you very soon. Another item that we would hope to work with the police department on this year is a crime prevention program. This is proposing to have a dedicated police officer to low and moderate income areas and to facilitate some needs over there. So first we will need to develop a crime prevention program, have you all approve that, and then start working with an officer that will be focused on those areas. Demolition, we're looking to continue demolition of unsafe structures that are in bad conditions, and we're allotting $100,000 to that. Code enforcement is also a component of our CDBG funds, and so with the code enforcement dollars, that's utilized for our code compliance officers and resource coordinator that we have in the Transform Temple department. So we'll be continuing those efforts to ensure that our neighborhoods are revitalized. And administration is a big part of CDBG as well. It's a little over $117,000. That also plays a big role, and it helps us pay for some positions that work in our low and moderate income areas, such as the neighborhood planner that will actually be starting at the end of this month, grant coordinator, and the neighborhood revitalization manager. So with that being said, as you can see, what we have proposed to you all tonight for the public hearing is a little over $808,000 to be utilized with CDBG funds. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Council, any thoughts or questions on item 6?
That this plan looks like it's really serving a lot of the needs that we have in our community, and I think it's a great plan.
It's nice to have a little extra money come into that fund, and I have appreciated over time. I think it's easy sometimes to take that money and sort of just put Band-Aids on things, and I've appreciated staff's thoughtful and strategic use of those monies to really make the biggest impact in the most needed areas. So staff, thank you for that.
And some connectivity with the impact, not just piecemeal.
Agreed. All right, then if there's no further comments from council, then I'll open the public hearing. If you would, please, anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Anybody? All right, there being no comments, then I will close this public hearing, and we'll move on now to the consent agenda. All items under this section, which is the consent agenda, are to be considered routine by the City Council and may be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired by the council, any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any council member and will be considered separately. Council, are there any items that you wish to remove from the consent agenda tonight? Okay. There being none, then council, this is items 7A through 7Q, and I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker?
Aye.
Councilmember Williams?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Davis?
Aye. Moving on to item 8 is the first reading and a public hearing to consider an ordinance adopting a rezoning with a site development plan from single-family 3 to planned development single-family 3 for lots 2 and 3, Block 1, Coles Factory Addition, addressed as 205, 207, and 209 North 21st Street. Ms. Lyerly.
Thank you, Mayor. And as you mentioned in the item description, this is a request from Single Family 3 to Planned Development Single 3. And on the screen I have where the property is located. It's in this blue square. It's just north of West Barton Avenue, and it's along North 21st Street. And as you can see on the aerial, the railroad is to the east of the property. And so the DRC reviewed this project on June the 3rd of this year, and the building official has also reviewed the property with the planned development site plan. The existing residential dwelling at 207 North 21st Street, it's the middle residence. It was actually once a barber shop, so the neighborhood knows it very well. It is now a one-bedroom efficiency with a kitchen, a bathroom, and a closet. And so this is the planned development site plan. The applicants have actually provided their survey for the required planned development site plan that's required for planned developments. And as I mentioned, the middle structure was once a barber shop, but it was placed many years ago on the property line between the two homes that are at 209 North 21st Street and 205 North 21st Street. And the three homes within this property are all shaded in yellow for your clarification of what is all on the property boundaries. The zoning map for this area, as you can see, the yellow area is actually zoned single family 3. And so the purple area around the property is zoned heavy industrial district. The red in the area to the west of the property is commercial. So there's a mix of different zoning districts within this area. In the future land use map in this area, the property is in the orange shading, which means it's a auto-urban residential classification. And that is characterized by high-density residential uses. And so with the thoroughfare map, North 21st Street is designated as a local street, which is appropriate for residential development. And we do have existing water and sewer in the area. Existing water is within the right-of-way along North 21st Street, and then the sewer in the area is a 6-inch line that is along the alley. There's some on-site pictures. You can see a variety of pictures that I took for the three homes within this request. And then the property to the north is another residential property. You can see the big backyard that is just north of their property. And then to the south, the south is a vacant former construction site facility. And that is the home just on the left side of the picture. That's the southern home within this property request for tonight. And then to the east, this is taken from North 19th Street, which is just across the alley from the subject property. So you can see that to the east is residential as well. And then to the west is the area that showed a mix of residential and commercial. This is just across the street from the subject property. And then standards, I have that on the screen for the single family 3 zoning district. And for front yard setback, the existing houses within the survey actually reflect that the 3 residential structures are actually the minimum 16.1 feet from the property line. And uses allowed within the single family 3 zoning district basically are single-family residential structures, detached, and prohibited uses are duplexes, triplexes, and apartments, as well as commercial uses and industrial uses. The request does comply with the future land use plan. It is compatible with surrounding uses and zoning. It has public facilities, and it is compliant with the thoroughfare plan. We mailed out 18 notices to properties within 200 feet of the subject property. We received 4 notices back in response to this request. I would like to point out that the 2 green A's with the pinstriped area, those are from the applicant, and then we received 2 A's, which are just east of the property. We did not receive any responses back in disagreement with this request. Staff is recommending approval of a rezoning to Plan Development Single Family 3 with the site plan that has been submitted with the following conditions. And the first one would be that the development be subject to the site development plan, and that existing buildings be allowed to remain in their existing locations. And the third condition is regarding redevelopment, and that would be that redevelopment will be subject to all development standards of the single-family 3 zoning district. And condition number 4 would be only uses allowed within single-family 3 zoning district per the UDC would be allowed on the subject properties. And at the June 17th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 7-0 to recommend approval of the rezoning per staff's recommendation. And so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Thank you, Ms. Lyerly.
You're welcome.
Council, any thoughts? This item is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Appreciate y'all's time. Basically, I'm the property owner at this location. And
Just for public record, state your name and address
I'm
for the
sorry,
record.
James Hicks. I'm actually a resident of the city of Troy. My address is 205 Goach Road in Troy. And again, I'm the property owner here, and I'm just here asking for y'all's approval and here if y'all have any questions.
Okay, very good. I think we're good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? All right, there being none, then I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion on item number 8.
So moved.
Second.
All right.
We have a motion to second. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long.
Aye.
Councilmember Walker.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales.
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye. Item number 9 is the first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing abandonment and conveyance of 39.96 square feet of public right-of-way situated along West Calhoun Avenue, Lot 3, Block 1, Barton Business Park, Phase 1, in addition to the city of Temple, Bell County, Texas. Ms. Demers.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Usually you see people from the planning department here, but legal has decided to take on our right-of-way abandonment. So I'm here tonight presenting this to you. Tonight is the first reading of this abandonment, and then the second reading will be on August 1st. And an application was presented for the abandonment and conveyance of 39.96 square feet of West Calhoun Avenue. And the building is located at 103 West Calhoun Avenue, and it encroaches into public right-of-way approximately 4 inches by a length of approximately 120 inches. The applicant does own the building and the underlying property legally described as Lot 3, Block 1, Barton Business Park, Phase 1. And the abandonment was circulated to outside utility providers and to City of Temple Public Works Department. No issues were identified. All were in agreement that the abandonment could move forward. And the applicant is the Temple Housing Authority. And then here's an aerial Just to orient you to where this building is located, this is Calhoun Avenue, and this is 3rd Street. This is a central fire station over here, and the building is right there. And you can kind of see the encroachment over that property line right there. And then here's a picture of the encroachment showing the 4 inches into the right-of-way. And then a survey, that highlighted area is the encroachment past the property line into our right-of-way. So it is staff recommendation to approve the abandonment and conveyance of just under 40 square feet of right-of-way on West Calhoun for a fair market value of $79.92. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Mears. Council, any thoughts on this 40 square feet?
Cheapest real estate deal in history.
That $80 is going to pull the old budget together.
It's going to break it.
Yeah.
We're going to take that in city attorney's office.
We'll buy 20 gallons of gasoline for a fire truck. All right, very good. All joking aside. This item is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Can I just ask a simple question?
From the podium.
My name's Dana Farrar. Again, my question is, when was this building put in? Does anyone know the age of this building?
A long time ago, but it was built.
That's my.
It was built over the lot line. We know that.
Yeah.
Our planning director is
About 100 years old.
So this could have been a simple mistake many years ago.
It was.
Okay.
So-
That was my only question. Thank you.
Just cleaning up.
The Housing Authority, as you may know, purchased the building in the last 2 or 3 months. And just to make sure they have clear title, they're asking that it be cleaned up.
Yeah.
So,
Makes sense.
yeah.
Handled some smaller things. I don't know when, but I'm
No.
sure, I'm sure that
But
was
not
that.
for less money.
Probably. All right. Any other comments? All right. There being no further comments, I will close this public hearing on item 9. And council, I'll accept a motion.
Motion to approve as presented. Second.
You have a motion and a second, Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker?
Aye.
Councilmember Williams?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Davis?
Aye. Item 10 is the second reading and a final hearing to consider adopting an ordinance amending the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 6, Animals and Fowl, and bring this chapter into compliance with state regulations, simplifying and clarifying language and terms, and providing more effective enforcement tools.
There's a B, too, if you want to read that
Okay,
in.
good.
She'll do.
Item B is to consider adopting a resolution setting various fees established in Chapter 6 of the Code of Ordinances related to the regulation and care of animals and delegating authority to the city manager to adjust such fees as necessary in the future.
Mayor and council, Amanda's going to do just kind of a brief presentation, really focusing mostly on the proposed changes that would allow miniature swine with a permit, and then explaining the fees, the proposed fees. So I'll hand it over to Amanda.
Thank you. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as Kayla said, I'm really going to focus on the miniature swine addition that City Council approved on the first reading at our last meeting, I guess June the 11th, and then also the resolution that includes the fees. Kayla had spoke at the workshop a couple weeks ago. We had a workshop prior to that, and then at the first reading, she went through all the major changes about the animal ordinance. And so because of that, we didn't feel that it was necessary to waste y'all's time and go through it all again. But I'd be happy to go through the slides that she presented last week if y'all feel that you have any questions that you have about anything that we discussed last week or about any other parts of the ordinance that we're proposing. That being said, we'll just jump in. Y'all have seen this slide several times. So just again, Chapter 6 is our animal ordinance. It includes everything you can think about related to animals, animals that get out of their fences, people who abuse animals, and violations for abusing animals. When animal services can impound animals, how we adopt animals out of our shelter, dangerous animals, and rabies regulations, and includes a lot of other things, but those are the highlights. So again, as the mayor just read, the goals of these Chapter 6 amendments is kind of all of our goals for what we've been trying to do for all these chapters as we bring them forward. We're trying to make them in compliance with state law. We're trying to make it easier to read and to understand by our citizens, especially this chapter. That was one of my main goals while writing it, because I wanted to make sure that everyone who owns an animal or comes into contact with animals, which is pretty much 99% of our population in our city, knows and understands what your rights and duties are in regards to animals. I wanted to make better enforcement tools for our city staffs, in this case, animal services and our police department, which are charged with enforcing our animal code, and then also to ensure citizens' due process. And this particular chapter, as Kayla discussed in the past, adds a lot of protections for animal owners, for hearing processes, for example, for aggressive dogs or remedial orders that animal services could order. So just a very brief overview of the changes that are proposed that Kayla discussed last week in a lot of detail. They include a stricter leash law, for lack of a better word, public nuisance animals and remedial orders. For example, if someone's dog gets out of a fence, animal services can say, hey, you need to fix your fence prior to sending them to our municipal court for their dog getting out. Restrictions on tethering of dogs, protect dogs that are tethered in yards, regulate the transportation of animals, so basically making sure that animals that are in the back of, let's say, a pickup truck are safe so they don't jump out or entangle themselves and strangle on a single leash. Clarifying the impoundment, reclamation, and adoption process, just to make it clear for citizens how those processes are done, but also make it clear for Animal Services Department of what they need to do in order to get those animals in and out of our shelter. Provide a clear multi-pet permit process for those that want to own more than 3 dogs, 3 cats, plus 1 litter of puppies or kittens. Another one is to implement aggressive dog regulations. So our proposal is to add additional regulations for aggressive dogs like we do for dangerous dogs under state laws. So as Kayla explained before, dangerous dogs are higher level offenders, dogs that actually cause serious bodily injury or bodily injury to a person. Aggressive dogs are dogs that but I see the most when I've been prosecuting, dogs that attack other animals in public places. So if someone's walking a dog and another dog gets out and bites another dog or cat, it's to regulate those aggressive dogs, make sure something like that doesn't happen again. And then, again, just try to align our code with state law, so to align our animal cruelty provisions, rabies, and dangerous dog provisions with state law. So just a brief summary of what's occurred. Back on July 9th, the Animal Services Advisory Board held a meeting to discuss these changes, and they looked at the same draft that y'all looked at the 11th meeting, and they voted to recommend these amendments. And they also recommended amendments to Section 654 of those amendments to include the keeping of miniature pigs in our city limits with restrictions. At one of the previous meetings before, and I can't remember the date, but it was a couple of weeks before, we had a citizen come in. Her name was Ms. Hawley. She gave a lot of information about miniature pigs, and then Dr. Cruz gave some feedback about what he had seen in his practice. And I believe City Council also received that same information from Ms. Hawley. So based on that information and Dr. Cruz's recommendation, the board did recommend that the miniature pigs provision should be added into our city ordinance. And then at our July 11th meeting, Kayla discussed that again, and City Council voted to, on the first reading, voted to include the miniature pig provision into these proposals. So because of that, right now in our city code, as y'all know, swine's only allowed in the city if they are kept in a pen or enclosure on a tract of land that's at least 10 acres in size that is zoned agriculture. So that's their basic rule. And so to include an exception for miniature swine, this is the language that we're recommending. A miniature swine would be any breed of swine weighing 150 pounds or less at full maturity. I didn't specify in the code what breed of pig it was because there's no way really to tell what kind of breed an animal is without doing a DNA test. I think everyone's experienced that when you adopt an animal from the shelter and they say it's a Labrador, but it's not. It's something else. So we can't do DNA testing on pigs, and so most pigs, from the material I've read, reach full maturity at 5 years. So at 5 years, the pig would have to be 150 pounds or less. Miniature pigs, and here are the requirements that someone have to have miniature pigs in the city if this proposal was to be passed tonight. A person would have to obtain a permit from the city, and they would have to pay a permit fee, and we'll talk about fees here in a little bit. Again, the swine can't weigh more than 150 pounds. They have to be kept indoors. A person may not keep more than 2 swine per household. They cannot be kept on the premises of any public business. So, for example, if you run a business and you want to have your pet pig with you, but it's open to the public, like a dental office or I guess just like a print shop, you couldn't have your pig on those premises with you. The pigs have to be sterilized. No breeding is allowed. The areas where they're kept have to be kept clean, so they have to be cleaned daily. The swine have to be annually vaccinated against erysipelas, which I believe is the right pronunciation, but Dr. Cruz said I said it wrong last time, so hopefully this is better. And swine may not have access to a public body of water, which is already included in our code for all swine. So this is, Kayla had discussed all of those last week, except for the permit, which I believe Mr. Hensley, one of our citizens, brought up last week. He wanted a permit, so we included that for some of his concerns. But what we didn't discuss was when a permit may be revoked. And so this is some of the language that we added in the current draft that's before you tonight. So in the current draft, it allows a miniature swine permit to be revoked if the permit holder violates any condition of the permit, which we just discussed. It violates any state or local law related to animals. So, for example, if someone had a habit of letting their dog out, then they wouldn't be allowed to keep their pig permit either. Or if they're convicted of animal cruelty, I just think that's kind of a given. We don't want people who abuse animals to have access to animals. And then another way that a permit could be revoked is if Animal Services determines that the swine poses a danger or is detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of the public. For example, if someone is causing a public nuisance by not cleaning their pig's litter box area and it's causing a smell in the community around where the pig is being held, that would be a public nuisance. That would be detrimental to the health and safety of the people around the pig. Just another due process thing, as we were talking about earlier in the slides, one of the goals that we had was ensure due process for citizens. So because of this, I added in an appeal procedure. So permit holders who have a miniature swine permit may appeal. So if for whatever reason Animal Services determines that their permit is revoked, they will have an opportunity to appeal that to a hearing officer to determine whether or not they can keep that pig. So now I'm going to discuss fees, and so this is part of a resolution that's before you tonight. So our current city code for Chapter 6 talks about different kinds of fees. They talk about reclamation fees and impoundment fees, which are a little bit intertwined in our ordinance, but it also includes things, trying to think of what else. Those are the things that come to mind. But they talk about fees in it. In addition, our city council also has resolutions that establish fees that aren't in our city code. For example, fees for surrendering animals and euthanizing animals. And from what I can tell from talking with finance, with Animal Services, those fees are a little bit scattered on different kinds of resolutions. In addition, with this current chapter that's before you tonight to consider, they establish more fees. For example, I separated reclamation and impoundment fees to make them really clear what the difference are between them. Quarantine fees, seizure fees, veterinarian costs, things of that nature. And so to make it very clear for our citizens and to put everything in one place for easy access, we're asking you to look at all the fees together in one resolution and pass them together to make it, like I said, transparent for citizens so they know what they're responsible for whenever they're trying to interact with Animal Services and figure out what fees that they're required to pay. So here are some of the current fees that our city currently charges related to animals. So for example, a reclamation fee. So reclamation fee is, let's say your dog is out of your backyard and it wanders down the street and it gets picked up by Animal Services. You can always go down to Animal Services and pick up your dog. So what Animal Services would charge you on those in that circumstance is $15 a day for the first day of impoundment and $5 for each additional day. And if your dog is a repeat offender, if it's out 4 times in a year is pretty much how is a repeat offender. We call it repeatedly at large in our ordinance. Then at that point, your fees would be doubled. So whatever your 15 plus the 5, that would be doubled in order to reclaim your animal. It seems like a low fee, the $15 and the $5, but Animal Services really wanted to keep those fees low because they want to encourage people to reclaim their animals. We also charge euthanasia fees. For example, someone surrenders an animal and it's elderly or it's unadoptable because it's dangerous or it's so sick Animal Services can't cure it. We do euthanize those and we charge $30 for that service. Sometimes people are unable to take care of their animals. Sometimes there's animals, it's dangerous and they don't they don't know what to do with the animal. So sometimes our city accepts animals, so people surrender their animals to animal services. In that case, we do charge currently a $20 fee for that. And then in addition, we have adoption fees for dogs and cats, which are normal fees. So we have base fees for dogs and cats, and then there's additional fees that are added if the animal is altered. So if an animal comes into the shelter and it's a dog and it's already spayed, then at that point, the person would be required, if someone is to adopt that already spayed animal, they'd have to pay $65 plus your base fee for that dog of $20. So you'd end up paying $85 for that animal. If the animal comes in and it's unsterilized, then sometimes our foundation sterilizes those animals, so then that base fee would be added to that altering fee by the foundation. And then sometimes people adopt animals that are unsterilized. So under state law, if an animal is adopted from an adoption agency, and animal shelters run by the city are types of those, they call them adopting agencies, I think is the right term. But if they're adopted from those types of agencies, they're required to get them sterilized within a certain number of months, or immediately if the dog's over, or the cat is over 4 months of age. And so because of that, people are required to sterilize those animals. And so what our city does is they offer them voucher fees. So if the person adopting the animal pays $65 or $55, which is a lot cheaper than what an ordinary vet would charge, they can get that animal sterilized through the foundation. And so those fees are added to the top of the adoption fees. So it's a long way to say we charge adoption fees. All right, so these are some of the proposed fees, and they're different than what we had before. So like I said before, if you read our current chapter, impoundment fees and reclamation fees are kind of intertwined, and they're used interchangeably. So what I did is I separated them. So I made reclamation fees for normal animals that get out, and then for impoundment fees, it's a higher charge. And the reason for that is impoundment fees would only be charged for those people who have their animals seized for animal cruelty, or for people whose dogs were impounded because they were determined to be aggressive or dangerous. So animals that are abused, that are seized, I guess I should say this, those people, if it's determined by the municipal court that animal's abused, they don't get that animal back. You don't get to reclaim an animal that was abused and you were determined to have abused that animal. But what they do is the municipal court can charge the owner for the time that the city took and the care that the city took of that animal while it was being held in their facility pending that hearing. And so the person would be charged for that even though they don't even get their animal back. Aggressive and dangerous dogs, they can be returned back to owners if the animal, under certain circumstances, if the owner complies with all the requirements of aggressive or dangerous dog owner. But in those circumstances, the owner, pending a hearing in some circumstances, would be required to take their dog to animal services to just pend until a hearing is held, which is a pretty quick hearing setting date. It's 10 days from the date that the animal is seized or impounded, just to hold it to make sure it's safe for the public. And in those cases, if a dog's determined dangerous or aggressive, the court could order the owner to pay $18 a day. Now, of course, if the animal's determined not to have been abused or not aggressive or not dangerous, the owner would not be required to pay those fees. Animals would just be returned to the owner. So another thing is quarantine fees. So this is another new fee that's being proposed. So whenever an animal is suspected of having rabies, let's say a dog gets out and bites someone out in the street, and we don't know if that dog has had rabies shots because the owner is unable to prove that the animal had been vaccinated, it's required under state law for that dog to be quarantined. And the owner is required under state law to give that either to a veterinarian of their choice to quarantine or to animal services to quarantine. But a lot of times people don't do that. They don't want to do that, and they just hold on to their dog. In those cases, we sometimes have to seize the dog and quarantine to make sure we comply with state law, to make sure that dog is being held in quarantine and that it wasn't actually rabid, and then to make sure it gets a rabies shot at the end of that quarantine, which is also required by state law. So in those circumstances, when someone doesn't put the dog into quarantine as they're required and the city has to seize it in order to comply with those requirements, the staff's proposing to charge $25 per day to hold that animal, plus $18 for the rabies shot at the end. I will say that the $18 a day and the $25 per day plus the $18 for rabies, those are market rates. I had animal services call around the area and ask 4 different veterinarian clinics, just different parts of the city, what they charge, and that was the average rate for those particular rates. So they do match what a vet would charge for those types of situations. So then the last, I guess it's not the last one. The last on the slide is seizure costs. So these would be the costs related to seizing a dangerous or aggressive dog or prohibited animal. So example, if you have a crocodile and you're holding it in your backyard and we have to come in and get your crocodile from your backyard because that would be a prohibited animal, the city would charge for that seizure. So that would be the cost of the services of the police officer serving that warrant and the animal services officers that went out to take that animal from you. So another proposed fee are veterinarian costs. Sometimes animals come in and they're hurt. For example, a dog gets out of your backyard and gets hit by a car, and Animal Services has to take it over to our vet that we contract with to get its legs set. In those cases, those are substantial fees that the city has just incurred, and then someone will come in and adopt the animal. Currently, in our chapter, it doesn't require that someone pays the veterinarian costs, and so the city is just swallowing those costs. And so this would propose that a person wouldn't be required to pay those costs prior to getting their animal released back to them. So and the next fee is prohibited animal costs. Again, prohibited animals are wild animals in our code: lions, tigers, bears, crocodiles, dangerous poisonous snakes, things like that. So those are rare. I've been prosecuting for about 4 years. I have never seen a prohibited animal in our city, but in those cases...
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
So if an animal is injured...
Yes.
The city pays a veterinarian to
Medically treated. Medically treated.
That's what I was looking for. So the animal's now been treated. It goes into the facility, and it's not reclaimed by the owner.
Right.
It's now just up for adoption.
Right.
Do fees then apply to that specific animal, to the person that wants to adopt it, who is not the original owner?
No, it doesn't,
Okay.
and that's
I
not
didn't
something we
think so.
included in here. But no, that's a good question.
Okay.
Do you have any? Is that it, or?
That's it.
You look like you had another question.
No, it's just I would feel it would be then difficult for that specific animal to be readopted. if it's
Exactly, yeah.
4 times, if it's $300 or $400.
Right. We've actually had circumstances where an animal is involved in, let's say, a domestic violence situation, and it was shot. I've seen that happen.
Okay.
And it was, if we charge for the care of that bullet wound care to
Sure.
a foster family that wanted to take it out and get that dog a better home, that would prevent that dog from getting a better home. So
I didn't
we
think
don't
that
charge
was
for
the case, but I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah, that's a good question. So just to move on, for prohibited animal costs, I think I already talked about that. We would charge for the actual cost of the city to house, transport, or feed a prohibited animal, because that's not something we typically do. Dogs, cats, sometimes we have roosters and chickens. Those are pretty easy to catch, but if it's something that's dangerous and we don't have the food for it, that's something that we want to charge people if they're having those prohibited animals in our city. And then sometimes, like I just said, we have adoption of other domestic animals. Like, for example, sometimes we have hamsters that people surrender, or someone finds in their backyard, or chickens that get loose. And so they're sitting in our shelter, and we don't currently have a way to really charge people to adopt those animals out. And so what basically happens is our Animal Services Department just says, we're just going to charge you the cost of a cat, and then they give the animal to whoever who adopts it. So this would allow adoption fees for those other types of animals, like cats or dogs, for Animal Services to use their discretion to set those fees. Or if it's like a hamster, they can set it a little bit lower. If it's something that's a little bit bigger, they can, let's say a horse that we had to seize, it could be a little bit higher to adopt those animals out. And then here are permit fees. We talked about permit fees a little bit ago. Multi-pet permit fees, all these fees would be set at $50 for multi-pet permit fees for those who want to own more than 3 dogs or 3 cats and a litter of puppies or kittens. For example, if you're a cat lover and you want to foster a lot of kittens, but you're a good pet owner, you can get one of these multi-pet fees for $50. The miniature swine permit fee, which we just discussed all the requirements for that, and the aggressive and dangerous dog permit fees, which would be set at $50. Just a note, dangerous dogs permit fees, those are required under state law. State law doesn't set the amount for those fees, but it does say that a person who has a dangerous dog that gets their animal returned to them does have to pay a dangerous dog permit fee. It's never actually been set by City Council, and as far as I know, when I've been talking with Animal Services, they've never really had to set one in the past, just because usually when someone has a dangerous dog, something happens. Either the person surrenders the dog ends up being euthanized for some reason, the dog gets seized because the animal doesn't require, the owner doesn't comply with all the dangerous dog requirements. They've never actually had to set any permit fees. But it'd be good to have that in the future in case we ever have a situation in which we need it. And aggressive dogs and dangerous dogs are pretty much intertwined by the fact that they have almost the same regulations involved. And so the administrative cost for that would be about the same. In addition, if you look at the chapter before you, it talks about the requirements for aggressive and dangerous dog owners, and one of the requirements for both of those is to post dangerous and aggressive dog signs on all the outside walls of your enclosure you're keeping in. So if your dog's in the backyard, then all the parts that are visible to the public would have to have a sign saying aggressive dogs, so prevent little kids or even just people walking their other dogs to stay away from your fence so they wouldn't get near it because they would know. We don't currently have these signs. This is a new proposal, and so when I was speaking with Animal Services, James Martin was looking into those signs, and he said it would probably cost about $25 per sign. Probably in the future it would be cheaper because we would actually have them, but right now we don't, so we were going to have to generate them and get them together and buy them, and he said that it would cost about that much for now. So as I just kind of alluded to, fees can change. If you think about impoundment fees and quarantine fees, those can change in the future based on the market rate, either cheaper or more expensive. Most likely everything gets more expensive, so it could be more expensive in the future. Those signs in the future could be cheaper to purchase for the city, so those fees could be lowered. And so because of that, we're proposing to allow in the resolution the city manager to use their discretion in the future to administratively update the fees, just in case circumstances or costs change. And then I'm just going to conclude because Kayla finished with this last time, and I just thought the pictures of her animals are just so cute. So these are all the animals that she adopted from the animal shelter, and I know one's named Paco and one's named Sadie Mae. Can't remember the name of the other.
Yeah, Maximus.
Maximus. Yeah. I think
We're all
Maximus
over
is
the
the
place.
middle one.
Yeah.
But she adopted all these from the animal shelter. Our animal shelter right now has a lot of dogs and cats that need good homes, and they found good homes with Kayla, and she has a zoo, so she can't really have that much more without violating her animal ordinance.
Yeah.
And so other
Amanda
people need to
reminded me.
adopt. And so I'm just going to lay that out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll be happy to ask any questions, and if you want to talk about any of the other changes that we are proposing that I didn't go over, I can definitely do that as well.
Thank you, Ms. Rass. Council, any questions? No? From the podium.
Don't say your address.
Thanks, sir. I'm Lieutenant Hunt. I'm over the animal shelter for the police department. I just wanted to thank Kayla and Amanda for all the work that y'all did on this to update the ordinance to be a lot clearer for the public. Whatever the council votes on tonight, all that effort is very, very much appreciated. And August 17th is Clear the Shelter Day. You have one more dog and two more cats you can get.
Yeah.
Lots
And there's a
of room.
multi-pet permit.
Yeah, I
Thank you all
actually
very
have a
much
third
again.
dog.
We really appreciate it.
Where's the picture?
Well, she's
Thank you for taking the
she's a really
responsibility
old
also
English
of the,
Oh, what a
of
sweetie.
the, I
Her
call it
picture
the pound, the
should be
shelter,
there.
under the, I know that's added to your workload, but thank you for that. I think it's appropriate. Thank you very much. Anything further? All right, then there being no further comments, I will entertain a motion on item 10A.
There is not one required. Hopefully, there's not one posted. Yeah, there's. Yep.
Try to mark those because I miss those sometimes.
Oh,
No, that's
actually, it does say final hearing on the agenda. So let's open a public hearing just to be safe. Yeah. Nope.
Although we're not sure if this item requires a public hearing,
Yeah.
we're going to open that now. And if you would like to comment on this item, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
On both A and B?
No, we're
Just A.
Well, I guess the public hearing will be for item A and B. Or just A?
Just A.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll do a public hearing on both. No, just A. Okay. We don't know. Okay. Any comments? Nope. All right, very good. Then there being no public comments, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion on item 10A.
Motion to approve item 10A as presented by Amanda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker?
Yes to A, but no to the addendum of mini swine. I'm not sure how that works.
I think we have to We've done this once before.
Man.
I know. So we have a motion and a second.
You have a motion, a second, so your vote, if you're wanting to vote no on the miniature swine, you'll have to vote no on the motion on the table.
Then no.
And can they amend the motion
Or,
at this
yeah,
point?
that's, so
Or-
you
And
can.
that has to be voted on
Exactly,
separately,
yeah.
then we have
So
to go
you,
back to the-
you can make,
in the pot,
you
but-
can amend the motion, and then council will have to vote on whether to accept the amended motion. And if that vote passes, then that would be the motion on
So-
the floor.
The amended, you would be amending Councilmember Long's motion.
Okay, then I would like to amend Councilmember Long's motion to not, to agree to item A
Without.
minus the miniature swine addendum.
So we would need a second on that amendment, and then a vote of everyone.
So do we have a second to Councilmember Walker's amendment of the original motion?
Can I say, I'm not saying anything, but I want to say something.
We need a second. That's probably what we need.
Yeah, well, I wasn't doing that. I'd just like to say something. Can I just say something? I am so torn on this because I know that we have two residents here who are really opposed to miniature swine. My support of that portion of it was because of Dr. Cruz and because of the Animal Services Board, their recommendation to us. And I feel badly not supporting their recommendations. So I just wanted to add that remark.
So do we have a second to Councilmember Walker's amendment of Councilmember Long's motion? It does not appear that we do. So now we
That
move
would-
along to us. So now we continue voting on Councilmember Long's.
So that motion died for lack of a second. So you get the motion, original motion made by Councilmember Long is on the floor.
Okay.
So I think you would probably want to start over with the
Yes.
roll.
Yes. So that's done.
So now what
So
you're
now
voting
I'm
on
voting yes
is,
or no.
is the whole thing, including miniature pigs. So if you vote yes, you're voting for the chapter and including miniature pigs. So you will have to vote no on the entire thing if you're not wanting to change miniature pigs at this point.
All right. Councilmember Long.
I'm going to vote aye because I'm supporting Animal Services Board and Dr. Cruz, and I want to say that if this doesn't work out, we can look at it again in a year or 6 months or whenever. So aye.
Councilmember Walker.
I am agreeable to that.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales.
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
No. Motion carries. Now we will, I'll entertain a motion now on item 10B.
Well, since I've been such a dog on this, it's pardon the pun, I'll make a motion to support item B as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on item 10B. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long.
Aye.
Councilmember Walker. Councilmember Williams. Mayor Pro Tem Morales. Mayor Davis.
Aye. Last item, item number 11, is to consider adopting a resolution authorizing the engagement of Naaman Howell Smith and Lee, PLLC, to provide interim city attorney services for the city of Temple. Ms. Myers.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you are all aware, in May, Kayla tendered her resignation or announced that she intended to resign as city attorney. So she has accepted a position with Naaman Howell Smith and Lee. So her last day in the office for us will be next month. You, of course, have already engaged an executive recruiting firm, and your search for her replacement is underway. However, I do feel like there's likely to be at least a couple of months of gap between Kayla's last day and when you will have announced or named her replacement. So the resolution that's before you tonight would be to engage Naaman Howell to allow Ms. Linderos to continue to provide interim city attorney services until you have named and appointed a new city attorney. I estimate that the cost of the few months of services will be approximately $40,000. As included in the item, you would also approve a budget amendment that would move money from salaries to contracted services to continue the interim city attorney services. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Council, any discussion regarding this item? Nope. There being none, then I'll entertain, this is subject to a public hearing? No, sir. Okay. I will entertain a motion to approve item 11.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long? As much as it pains me to agree to anything to have Kayla leaving, I'll vote in favor of it.
Councilmember Walker? Aye. Councilmember Williams?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Davis?
Aye. Thank you all for attending tonight's meeting, and this meeting is adjourned.